everybody, and welcome to Epac Quarantine Chat. I'm Ed Fernandez, and today I will be talking to two people I have known for a long time and have worked at Epac for a very long time. Mr. Tim Riggs. Hello, Mr. Riggs.
Hello.
And Megan Riggs. Hi, Megan. How are
Hi.
you?
Good, how are you?
I'm okay. I'm dealing. How you guys doing? Now, the thing is, you guys have a house and 3 kids and 2 dogs. So how is
Yeah.
that going?
It
See, it's
is.
just me and my 2 cats and my soldier from Sunday in the Park. So we're all just
No, we're fine. We're fine. Oh,
We're not drinking or anything.
no.
So it's crowded here.
Godzilla here. Godzilla here.
That's good. You have that.
So it's crowded. We are, we live in a townhouse, so we are a little bit on top of each other.
Mm-hmm.
You probably hear the dogs jingling in the background. Kermit's right here.
Yeah.
Trying to say hello. Let me pop up and hi. Here's Kermit.
He's a star too.
Oh,
There's
Kermit.
Kermit.
Oh.
So, and of course he wants to be in the middle of everything. So it's definitely not quiet here. And, we are so close as a family. We cannot get away from each other, even if we wanted to. So
It's only been a little bit of bloodshed.
To go out for walks and stuff, right?
yeah, for sure.
I believe it.
Yeah. Those are your vacations, right? Walks, walk the dog, or on vacation now.
Yeah.
The dogs eventually just look at you like, another walk? Really? Daddy needs a walk, okay?
Well, now, Megan, you're homeschooling your kids now, right? And Tim,
Yeah.
you're a teacher, so you are teaching online now, right?
That's right.
That going?
It's bizarre. I'm teaching performing arts online. Yeah. And so it's my first year in the classroom, and that, as it is a bit of a challenge in an academic setting, and then like trying to invent projects and keep kids interested and intrigued in performing arts online is a challenge. It's kind of fun. It's given me some opportunities to do some cool things. But even my students are not even required by law to necessarily do the work. So there are some days like I feel like I'm teaching out of the 100 that I normally teach. I feel like I'm teaching like 15 of them. Yeah. So I just keep going. I just pretend that they're fascinated and gripped by everything I'm offering them.
So that's just so I have a better idea here. Do they do like monologues and you do monologues and stuff like that?
Yeah, monologues and scene studies, and they learn their stage directions, and they learn how to score a script, and and then doing fun things like scavenger hunts where they have to create different videos of themselves doing an impersonation. They can impersonate me if they want to. All kinds of create bizarre tableaus and things like that. So yeah, I'm keeping them busy, those that are doing it.
And Miss Megan, you are homeschooling your kids now, or are they on computer with their teachers, or like how are you managing all this?
So Cosie's in kindergarten. She's the easy one because it's like all on the tablet, and she gets to like color, and that's like easy. But then we have like kids who are learning like Newton's laws of gravity and like Algebra 3 and all the things that I don't do.
Which I remember. So, yeah.
Yeah, they come to me with English history, social studies stuff. They go to him with like science and math.
I don't know.
And also like math now is stupid. Like it's I can't even describe it because it just doesn't make sense. They're like, use this lattice to go like up and over, but then if you divide, you have to go like back and down. And I'm like,
yeah.
I don't know. Like I used to put a number above a number and then you would do the math and they don't do that.
And what was wrong with it?
This is how out of touch I am with it. I was freaked out when I learned probably a year ago that they don't teach cursive writing anymore. Like script, what we used to call script. I couldn't believe it.
No.
I was like, what? Yeah. So
my students don't even know how to sign their name. They just print it, and it's all it's bizarre.
Right.
I know weird. It's like I guess you can on the computer. You just you sign it by typing in your name. Wow. So so what people I don't know if they know that Megan, you are also work at Epac. You're also the comptroller, correct?
Yes, comptroller, finance guru.
What?
The finance guru.
Oh, the finance guru of Epac, and you're still doing that in part-time, right? As far as everything.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, there's not a ton for me to do without any of the shows running. So, like, I don't have any budget work, and like, there's, I have to make sure that we pay the bills. But that's kind of the extent of my job right now is making sure that the power gets paid and the water gets paid, and
right. And you were directing your first show at Epac when this happened.
Yes.
And we had gotten the curious incident of the dog of the nighttime. And and Tim, you were in it. You both were in it. Yeah. And we had gotten to Tech the week of opening.
Right in the middle of Tech.
Yeah, it was really heavy. And I knew that Saturday it was crazy because it was like the storm was coming and we knew it was coming, but we didn't want to acknowledge the storm was coming. Yeah. We had to.
Yeah.
And then I'll never that Saturday. I just looked at Andy Hill, who was a board member of the board, and I'm like, are we just exercising? Is this an exercise in futility? Because everybody's working hard, and there was this, and then an hour later, that Wolf closed everything down?
Yeah, we're in the middle of a rehearsal, getting slowly close.
I was like, and it just boom, and I felt it coming, and we had to just call it to a halt and tell everybody it was really hard. So I want to know, tell me, you were both involved in that production. I will be involved in the production, which we'll get into later, but let's just talk for a second about that and the feelings involved with that, because Tim, as an actor, you had devoted, and we had run it, and devoted so much time. And Megan, this was your first directing gig, and you were so excited, and you worked so hard, and you were going through this learning process of learning how to direct and just learning as you were going. So it was all this different stuff that was going on for you, not just another show. So what was it like when it just all boom? Like, what was the experience for you?
It was, I literally felt like someone punched me in the stomach was like my instant reaction. And like, you always, intellectually, like this is the right thing to do. This is for the safety and health of everyone. But like, what a sucky time, like right at Tech, like right, we're just about to get it up. And I think the thing that, because of course for me, it's my first show as a director, so I have all these emotions for my own personal journey, but I was watching my actors just working so hard to make my vision happen. And then the thought of no one ever getting to see it, like, just was crushing. And I felt almost, I felt worse for Ben, who's doing such a great job as Christopher, and for all the actors who were just giving me everything that they had and had made this.
It was one thing I didn't hope to ask, kind of read that, like, we've been in the trenches, we've done this, and you know, but for Ben, it was his first, it was a lead. He was so young. He worked so hard. It was heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking.
It was.
Yeah.
His work is so good, and to watch how hard he worked and how professional he was all along the way, and
how just nice he was to work.
Oh, what a
darling. Just a darling boy.
Yeah, just everything. A kid, the kind of actor, forget his age, the kind of actor you want to work with all the time, and to know that this was such,
like how you probably were at that age.
It's true. You should have seen me on the set of Bye Bye Birdie. I was kicked off multiple times and brought back. There was,
No, seriously, but it was hard. But yeah, so Megan, how long did it take you to process through that?
I don't think it fully hit me until Monday. Like, I kind of went into a coma on Sunday, and I didn't come out of our room. I think I was just so emotionally and physically exhausted. And then it really hit me Monday, and I went for a run, and I cried my entire run. So it kind of turned into like more of a stumble. And that's when it really kind of hit me. But also the cast has been so great. Like, we are in a Facebook group and we talk all the time and we share jokes, and we've been doing Zoom meetings to like do a read through of the show and just see each other's faces and maintain that connection. So this like is an ongoing great experience to be with this.
Right. And I know at this point that, you know, right now, of course, nobody knows what tomorrow's going to bring. And we're going to be making an announcement soon. Probably the announcement will be made before this hits air. But we will be when we open, we will be doing the show. That'll be granted, rights willing, and the rights companies have been really good. We will be opening with that production because we're ready to go. The set's dead.
Yeah, it's sitting there ready to go.
The theater to pick something up, it's like Chernobyl. It's like standing there, you know?
Oh, it's so eerie. It's very creepy.
So eerie. I don't even go to the theater. When I have to go there for something up for a second, it's because it's just so dark and it's just the set is just monolithic standing there.
And when I, where my office is, when I go pick up the bills for the month, like to have to go in and see it, like the first time I went in when everything was shut down, like I didn't want to look at it.
Yeah, I know.
And then that eerie blue ghost light that we have in the back that like kind of casts a little bit of gloom over everything.
And Tim, how was your experience? I know that you weren't directing, you were acting, but what was it like for you to just like come up to that point and go home? Bye, everybody.
Yeah, I mean, it was like the week leading up to Tech was surreal in that we had one cast member, Bobby Checchia, like weeks ahead of time preparing us, like nobody touch anything. We have a lot of different things that we share and use and all these things. Nobody touch anything. Because one of us gets coronavirus, we're all going down, and it didn't feel real. And then like there's a night where we're rehearsing and like Tom Hanks gets coronavirus and Rita Wilson and it just and slowly it becomes more and more real and we're going no, none of this. They're in Australia, whatever. And we do this piece that Megan, it's a really, I mean, it can be a technically, as far as technical theater, dazzling show. But Megan found a way to do it really with a lot of fidelity on a lower budget And so that required a lot of actor movement, a lot of suspension of disbelief in the rehearsal process. And then comes Tech Saturday, when her vision of the set hits. And we're starting to see what all this work we did as actors was going to, what the backdrop of that was going to be, and how the set was going to help us tell that story. And it got so exciting. And you just start to realize what you have. And I'm really very excited. I'm proud of her. I'm proud of you for the vision that she managed to put out there. But it got so exciting in those moments that you just couldn't wait now to share this with the public. And then bam, I mean, just like you're starting to, you're noticing Ed pulling Andy Joe into his office, you know, throughout the rehearsal. And then Megan's got to leave for a minute, and you're going, oh, they're talking. So, yeah. And let me just keep going, though, you know, eat my Wawa, and then, you know, yeah.
Well, and you know how it is, because, like, oftentimes as cast, like, somebody gets sick, inevitably, and it goes through the cast.
Oh, I know.
And so to us, we're like, it kind of comes with the territory, like, oh, but then, like, you start hearing, like, the massive amount of people who are dying from it, and it, like, hits a whole new level, and then you're like, no, that doesn't have to go through this cast, thank you.
Yeah.
So it was, I
mean, everybody, because I don't want to give away when we actually open this wonderful show, but there's stuff that we all do. There's like stuff we all move. There's a lot of actor-driven movement and touching, picking up stuff and moving it, and everybody moves something. And I'm sitting thinking, we're all touching that. There's no way we could wipe all this down.
No.
Yeah. Can't do this show 6 feet apart, you know.
I know. It's like, and you know, you're right, because in theater we're so used to, like, especially in musicals when people are singing in each other's faces, that we're so used to sickness kind of traveling within the cast, and this is running to another level, I guess, you know. And again, I think you're very right when you said it kind of wasn't real. Tom Hanks, it was like the primary, the Democratic primary was more real, you know, because we were all
It's true.
we were listening to that.
Yeah. Yep.
Pete Buttigieg was still in the race.
What's the result?
We had just finished mourning Buttigieg, and then came Corona.
I know. It was a hell of a week. I had to mourn Booty, and then it was like the show was over. Terrible.
I know.
So Tim, let's talk about, because we'll start with you on this. We'll jump now to theatrical history, because how long have we been working together? First question.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like, I remember saying this to you at the bar one night, and it was 2005. And you said, no, it's been longer than that. And I said, well, I know it feels that way. I mean, you and I had a long relationship of working together. I believe it feels like 30 years or so. And wow, it's not even half, because it does. I mean, it honestly does. Yeah. Because there's like that whole group, like Chris K.O. and people that I've worked with, and you're just in that group. First time I saw you on stage, I don't know if you remember this, but the first time I saw you on stage was in Suburbia, was the name of the show? At Hillsville. Do you know why I remember that was the first time? It was because Pam Shabora brought you up to me afterwards, and I had my long hair and huge beard before it was cool. And Pam Shabora goes, I think you need to meet somebody. Tim, this is the Ed Fernandez. Oh. You were introduced as the Ed Fernandez. And not ironically, she was very serious that you were the Ed Fernandez.
She was a wonderful woman. She was such a cat. I loved her. She was here far too short.
I know.
Because she was so, she was in Mill. She was an associate professor.
Yeah.
Temporary. She was filled a gap.
Yeah.
Went after Tally. Wasn't it right after Paul Tally?
It was, yeah, Tally and then Shabora, and then they went through a few other people like Michael Phillips and folks like that before Tony.
Yeah, but she was a special person. She was so warm and so eccentric in such a lovely way.
I know. And she had just like the biggest fan club, like in the short time.
I know. To me, there's to love her. Like everybody loved her. Like you know, she was just like such a creature of the theater. So the Epac audience knows you so well. You've been so many shows. So tell us, how did you start in theater? When did you get the bug? And just a little bit of biographical information about the young Timothy Riggs, his world. Yeah.
Well, so this past summer was really fun because Epac's production of Pippin took me back to the age of 8 when I did my first community theater production. I played like a donkey in church pageants and things like that before, but I finally got my big break with Jenkintown Music Theater, playing Theo. And I still remember the audition.
What was that? Schaefertown?
It was Jenkintown. Yeah, Bradley Cooper fame. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's his hometown.
Know that.
Yep.
Corrected.
Yeah. He and I together.
Let's go to Jenkintown. Anyway,
and a star was born at that moment. But I still remember having to get up in front of these theater people, these serious theater people, and say, "You sure are dumb, Pippin. That's not a dog, it's a duck." And that was my line. And from there, I rocketed to fame from there.
Okay, so they have a question on you, and I want you to be honest.
Yeah.
Was Sanjay as good as you last summer?
I'm going to be real, you know.
Be real.
No, I think Sanjay probably is better than I am. Yeah, Sanjay's hilarious. Yeah. Love that kid.
I know.
All these Epac stars are eclipsing what I was at there. Yeah.
And then what after that? Then you got the bug and you kept doing
I got the bug all the way through elementary school, all the way through middle and high school. And I started getting those leads and getting excited. And I remember one time when we did Little Shop of Horrors, and I was so upset that I didn't get cast as Seymour. And I had a great director named Jen Eyre, who studied at Villanova, and she pulled me aside, and I was a junior, I think. And my girlfriend at the time was a perfect Audrey. And I was all upset that I didn't get Seymour. And she said, "Tim, sometimes the best roles are not the biggest ones." And she cast me as Orange Scrivello, DDS. And I got to sing. It was amazing. And then I went to college, and I did actually mostly improv comedy there, awful improv comedy. And came to Millersville, and it was Suburbia that brought me back, actually.
Really? I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah, like I kind of drifted away for like 2 years from theater other than the improv comedy thing. And it was Suburbia that brought me back. And I went from Suburbia to playing a 69-year-old Jewish man in a Holocaust play after that in Millersville. You know,
Incident at Beach?
It was a Shayna Madel.
A Shayna Madel.
Yeah, lovely little play.
Yeah.
And Lou Ziegler from
Lou, yeah.
Yeah, from Theater of the Sudden Sister. He met me at a summer camp that we were both working at, and he said, "You're a Puck," and he was doing A Midsummer Night's Dream, so then he had me play Puck. And next thing I knew, I was just going with Theater of the Sudden Sister a lot. And I had this guy named Ed Fernandez calling me once in a while, and then I think it was Falsettos and Assassins.
Do you remember the first show I asked you to be in was Falsettos?
Yep, I do.
You turned me down.
Yeah, and there was a little grudge going on there.
My phone call.
Yeah, because I had to play Romeo first, and I had to do all these things, you know.
Yeah.
And then it was.
You worked a lot with TSS, didn't you? You did a lot.
Yeah, a ton. Yeah, that was like what I called my home theater at the time. And they had me doing everything. They had me doing Shakespeare and contemporary stuff. And then when you finally got me, it was an odd play that you got me for to come out for. It was for Wes in 5th of July. And then I, at the audition, sat in the front row of the east wing of the theater and saw this girl sitting behind me.
Who was it?
Who immediately captured my attention, and we both were cast and acted disgustingly like middle school kids.
We were gross.
During the rehearsal process. And yeah, I mean, since then we've both had a long relationship with Epac, and Epac has given me these like incredible, meaty, starring roles to grapple with and grow as an actor and grow as an artist. And I've just had a blast doing everything from things like, you know, last year's Hand of God, where I'm playing a Texas preacher.
Youth council teacher, youth pastor.
Pastor Greg.
We're going to get into that later. Hold that thought.
Yeah.
So I want to go to Megan now, and your history with acting and Epac and how you started and all that jazz.
Yeah, I started when I was my mom put me in my first audition when I was 4, which was horrible. It made me so scared to audition for like 20 years. So don't do that to your kid. But I ended up doing, my first show was with Barbara Ellis was my director, and I think it was King and I, which I can never run for political office because there's some horrible pictures of me as a child of Siam up there. No, it was Fiddler on the Roof first, and then The King and I. So I started in musicals and really kind of only did musicals up until middle school, when I started doing things like A Christmas Carol and a few other things. But really, I thought that I wanted to go into musical theater. So I did musicals everywhere that I could, usually in Elizabethtown in high school or through the Music Foundation that used to exist here, until I went to college at Point Park University. And I was at Point Park when I auditioned for and got called back for 5th of July, which totally flipped my world around and made me realize I didn't want to do musicals and I would much rather do plays. And that was like a really great transition for me. I loved it. I will do a play any day over a musical. I know musicals bring in the big crowds, but as an actor, there's nothing better than a play.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. As a director, I think there's something about plays that, I mean, musicals are very technical. They're very technical. And even when you're in a musical, there's so many facets, juggling so many balls, and it's all technique. When I did My Fair Lady, I worked with Lydia Brubaker, who is a wonderful director. I adore Lydia. Yeah. So wonderful working with her on that. I wanted to work with her as an assistant, as a co-director for the longest time, and I finally did. And she was like, I didn't do another musical. I like, you have to keep all these balls in the air. It's true. It's a lot of technical, and as a performer, you've got to worry about your voice, and you got to worry about this, and But with plays, you can just submerge yourself. There's a submersion.
Well, I think
there's I don't know. It's hard to describe.
Yeah, there's a level of depth that there's only so deep you can go into a character of a musical because I think of all the technical stuff. Whereas you get, as a play, the characters that you get to do, you can like tear
really musical like Sweeney Todd. You know, Sweeney Todd.
Yeah.
The Sondheim musicals have like Sonny Bar for George.
Right, and they have that character. The songs build the character as well. as well as tell the story. And so it's to get a character that you can really go into their psyche and into who they are and what makes them tick, and building the layers on them as an individual to make them real and lifelike and human. I remember working with you on the Heiress, going into the psyche of someone who's been emotionally abused and put into a category, and trying to create a humanity that ends with a bitterness and yet also a growth and a development, and to put all those layers into someone is really unique in a play. And I think
I love that show. I love that show.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Oh, just beautiful.
Yeah.
It's a great experience.
And then, so you got into directing.
Yeah.
And how was that experience? Yeah. Now, have you directed before? You done a stage reading?
Mm-hmm.
But had you something like in Curious Incident? Didn't do anything that big?
No, and I mean, Curious Incident, like, I remember after Tim took me to see it in Philadelphia, and after we saw it, I remember saying to you, like, this is a show for Epac, and I knew, like, if we ever got to do it, it was just, like, when I had to get my fingers in and, like, be a part of, so... Yeah.
And it was really interesting. And I will say this, I will make a public statement on this. You really were wonderful, because I was there a lot, and you really were, like, I was wonderful to see you take an active role in the learning experience.
Thank you.
Not sitting there and thinking, oh, I know it all. Like, I could see you actually growing, coming to me, talking to me, taking my advice, and actually I could see the progress of you learning how to talk to actors, how to think things through, what's important, what the real technique of directing is. And it was really nice. It was really nice to see that growth in you daily, and how you accumulated that knowledge, and to see that knowledge being put to use daily, and upping daily, getting the knowledge becoming more and more so. Yeah.
And I think the thing that helped me the most was you, in the very beginning, you told me, you're like, you're used to working your style, and like, you now have to learn 10 different people's style, and you have to speak to them in their style. And that was like a light bulb for me, because I know how I like to work as an actor, but then it's pretty selfish of me to put that on to everyone else and make them learn the way I learn. To be better, I had to talk to them and see, what feels good to you? Do you want to do this? How does that make you feel? And it ended up being a lot more questioning than leading them to their result, which really
and I tell you personally, I love when actors direct, because everybody thinks it's so easy. Direct.
It is not. Anybody who thinks it's easy is not.
You tell people,
no.
And then it's like, okay, go for it. They're like,
you find. What is that great quote? Like, I didn't fail. I found 10,000 things that didn't work. Like, that's literally what it is. You're like, no, that doesn't work. No, that doesn't work. And every now and then you hit a block, and I'm like, everybody take 5. I just gotta like head in my hands.
But
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, that's another compliment to Megan, because like, a good PSA for anybody who begins directing is take it the way Megan did in terms of humility. Don't take it the way I did in terms of thinking I needed to walk into the room knowing how to do everything, that I needed to make the cast know that I was fit for this job, even though it was my first one. I really struggled with that at first. And so the willingness to say, I don't know, the willingness to say, you're part of this process. I'm the eyes out here. But you're, as an actor, you're a huge part of this process. And and really, you know, I had to admit that I didn't know how to read a blueprint. Like all the humbling things that came down the pipe for me. If I had just, I think, gone in with the mentality of I don't have to prove myself to anybody. I've done enough to get here, and now I'm here to learn. That would be the way to approach it. And Megan did that.
Yeah, no, it was really, I could, you know, her quest for knowledge, which I think every good artist needs, is quest for knowledge, and to see it put into action. And like at first, I would say at the beginning of the process to say, you know, that doesn't work. I'll tell you why this doesn't work for me. And then by the end of the process, she use something. No, that doesn't work, does it? Ed? It doesn't work, does it? Nope. Yeah, and just to be able to acknowledge that. I think the most important thing for directors that I would say is two things. Yes, I think you're absolutely right. It's like being a teacher. It's like everybody has their own process. You've got to learn how to work with everybody as an individual, because every actor is going to learn and process in their own way. And so when I first work with an actor, sometimes it's almost like a courtship. I won't know what to say. It's like a first date. Like some actors, I don't like them when they first work for me. It's no, I'm getting to know you. I've got to see how you operate. I've got to see what you like. I've got to see what you respond to. It's like a blind date. And then as the second show, I'll know how to respond to them. And you have to take everybody differently, and you'll have people different, and everybody as an actor needs different things, because you know it's a very, and I say this, and actors, directors who don't act, I think one of the things I've noticed, they don't realize what a vulnerable place it is up there.
Yeah.
It's scary, and that's why I like to direct more than act, because it's safer, because you're not out there with it's swinging to the breeze, if you know what I mean. You're not out there naked, and you're not vulnerable to that. And there's some amount of control until opening night when you have no control. And also, I think directing, I don't know, Megan, if you agree with that, it takes me out. Sometimes acting is painful because it takes you in. It's self-doubt. Questioning, for me anyway. Am I doing this right? Am I good? Do I look good? Where directing gets you out of your head and focusing on other people and just on helping other people. And I think for me, it's healthier. It's healthier.
For sure. And I think what I came home after one of our first like major rehearsals from Heiress, and I said to Tim, I was like, I have got to find a new way to approach working with these characters, because I found what I was doing was like trying to make myself, as an actor, you emotionally connect with that character. And when you're directing, if you try to emotionally connect with 8 characters, you come out and you're exhausted.
Yeah.
And like, for me to try and like put myself in Judy's position as the mother, to put myself in Ed's position as the father, like it just wasn't working. So I had to do exactly what you're saying. I had to go out and stop trying to be
and tell the story. And tell the story. And yet part of you can't help identify, and that's why it's mentally exhausting, because in order to tell the story, you've got to know where every character is coming from, and they're all through lines. So you are kind of dealing with all these characters and their wants and their needs.
And it's also hard too, like when you have, coming from the actor's side of things, I find that there are characters that I connect with a little more. So like I connect a little more with Judy, and I understand, like that's when I would talk to Andy and talk about like the anger and the frustration and the pain and the regret and all these things. It was easier for me to connect than like with Tim's character, who I was like, he's kind of a dick. Like, like so like when you get to direct, you can kind of like be like, you know, I don't have
did
to
you find yourself, okay, that's interesting, because I had the same thing when I did Fun Home, is I would like start off with the character being, I hated the character, you know, the man, the lead guy. I thought he was a horrible human being. And as I got into the show and the story came to life, I get more and more. And I started I got more and more sympathetic to him. But I had to start with the place like, I don't like this guy. Did you feel this way?
Well, and I think especially with Heiress, Ed is not written with the compassion of what his character has. Like
Right.
you see him at his worst moment, you don't see him at his best moment.
Right.
So
right. Yes.
we've had to fight, you know, hating Ed. You can't hate Ed. You have to understand where Ed is coming from. And, you know, Tim was really great about, you know, starting pretty dark and then getting.
I didn't start dark.
But that's his MO though. That's his MO. I mean, let's go dark.
His eyebrows. That's what it is. It's the eyebrows. Yeah.
But so I get back to finish that. There are two things. Treat every actress differently and don't be afraid of the words I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So important. Do not be afraid of the words I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And let the actors guide you. Let the actors tell, because they will know. They're living it.
Yeah.
They will know. And as a young director, one of the worst moments is when I had an intellectual moment that I wanted to work, and I imposed my intellectual moment, and then I look back at these, well, no, that wasn't organic. That was terrible. Like the actors will always tell you, if they're good actors and they're in it, they will tell you where to go. They will answer those questions for you. But never be afraid to say the words I don't know, or let's look at that, or what do you think?
Huge. Yeah.
So first of all, let's talk about how many times have you worked? I know you worked together in 5th of July.
Yeah.
And after that, how many other shows? Any
We did 5th of July. We did Hamlet. We did Christmas on Mars.
Christmas on Mars for Creative Works of Lancaster.
We did Cat on a Hot Tin Roof.
We did Of Mice and Men.
Of Mice and Men.
Yeah. And Elephant Man.
We did a lot together.
Yeah, we've done. We really have. There was a period there where it was almost like not a package deal, but it was just cool that we kept getting cast and things together.
Like the Lunts of Lancaster.
Yeah, exactly. Because there's a dynamic there. I mean, it's just fantastic to work with somebody with whom you have like this natural chemistry, regardless of the role. You know, I mean, we've played sort of adversarial characters. We played romantic interests.
Did we play siblings?
We played siblings in The Glass Menagerie.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't realize that you guys have worked together a lot.
Yeah.
Literally since 2005, we worked together.
Yeah.
Very consistently.
Because I only work with Megan. This was just how it fell into place, because you guys have never been like that.
No.
Never been. No. You know, like, I want Megan to be in the show, or Tim has to be you guys never have even come close to that. So all just because you guys deserve the parts, and it just happened to work out that way.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool, you know?
Yeah. Now, okay, so let's get into the questions that I love to ask all actors. Tim, we'll start with you. What roles, 2 of each, or 1 of each if you don't have, best roles, most memorable roles that you loved, and if any roles that you just don't want to think about anymore for whatever reason.
Yeah. Okay. So so I got to, under your guidance, I got to do Hamlet, which was, I mean,
That's
just
Alan.
an all.
Let's give kudos to Alan.
And Alan Gomberg, that's right. Alan actually deserves a lot of credit for guiding me as well through that process. The 2 of you and your different sensibilities, like, could not be more different as people. Yeah.
But
and
it really worked somehow.
It worked. It pulled the different strings that I needed pulled. I mean, he was the one there with me working technical sides of monologues until midnight. And you were the one delving every creative aspect that I could not picture myself. And you would find ways to solve problems that taught me a lot about directing as well, and about acting. so that one was an all-consuming, incredible experience, and also kind of rekindled my romance with Megan slowly as well too. And then the Pillow Man
Oh wow.
is such. I still get comments from people about that one, and that was
But that's a do-over. That's a
yeah,
do-over.
yeah,
We've got
yeah,
to look at that again someday because
yeah,
that was a great show. Yeah.
yeah. People need to know about that one, and they need to. I don't know. That was I think an incredible experience for all of us involved. Hilarious. Martin McDonough, a playwright. If for those people out there that have not read Martin McDonough for any reason, please do.
Yeah.
And so those playing Katori in that one, it was more about the experience of everything rather than just the role. It was learning about comedy in comedic timing with dark subject matter, running ridiculous speed throughs with Sean Young and Bob Checky to realize that there's so much about timing and speed and comedy and pacing. So yeah, and then just the story is beautiful. I mean, that was just one that I absolutely adored.
I have very fond memories of that show. I remember us like bond and talk. I don't know why. It was one of those shows that we didn't want to leave rehearsal. Maybe because the show was so intense that we just talk forever, most of us. And then we would just talk forever after the show. It's like, and then I remember it's a very difficult, now I think it would have been received better because people are so used to Madonna now.
Yes.
It's become part of the theatrical or vocabulary, and Triple, with Triple and the 5 billboards. But then people did not know him, so the combination of dark comedy and political satire, people didn't know how to take it.
They didn't.
I remember critics like, "How can you laugh at this?" I mean, everybody is like, nobody knew how to take this show. Closing night, it just was magic. I remember closing night.
Yeah.
That was just the audience 100% got it.
Yeah.
Everybody was on top level. I remember it was one of those nights that was magic. That I didn't want to end.
Yeah, they don't happen all the time, and when they do, they are stamped on you.
Yeah.
Permanently. I'll never forget that night either. I mean, just feeling so like the work was being validated and people get this, and now we know. Now this is what this is supposed to be. Right. Nobody's supposed to be gasping or silent or not participating in this experience. This is live theater. These people are engaged with us and they understand what's happening in front of them, and it was a truly beautiful experience.
Now, worst experience. Stuff you wish you didn't remember.
I have actually had really largely amazing experiences in theater. So I haven't had like any horror stories. One character I grew weary of is I probably have played Romeo in Romeo and Juliet more than I don't know who's somebody that played Romeo a lot. I don't know, but like but I know that broad that played Juliet until she was like 40 something or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I played Romeo way too much to the point where that kid pissed me off. Like, starting to be like bored of this kid whining and bored of this kid's, emo, dark night of the soul. So that was one that I kind of got bored with. And I don't know. What was interesting, I think, was I got a lot of lead roles in Lancaster County, which made me feel like, sort of a little bit prominent or whatever in this small area. And then I did like my first, and your role in this story is funny because playing Gooper in Cat on a Hot Tin Roof was like oh, Tim's not a brick. And yeah. And it was like taking me back to when you told me there was no way I could play Stanley Kowalski. Like I had to be like Tim, we know you're a great actor. I don't know how to explain this to you, you know, but you're tiny, man. You know, like you're a little man. So I had to accept that I was 40 years old. It was like literally the year I turned 40. And like the same way when I was at the eye doctor, I was going, wait, how do I read this pamphlet in front of me when I turned 40? You know, it was realizing that I was going to play like the chubby dad in this one. And, you know, I'd like put on weight and everything. And I just didn't feel like my old, whatever, young Panther stalking the stage. Thank you, Susan Pena. And it was humbling. So I guess like that was good for me, but I don't need to like revisit that period, because when you came up to me after seeing the show, I just remember you going, welcome to character acting, bitch. Yeah. So
I was born a character actor.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
My world day.
No, but it was good for me. But I don't know that I need to keep having that feeling of like, oh, I'm too chubby to be Brick, and I'm too, you know, whatever. Yeah, that's probably one that I could do one time.
Yeah. Yeah. I've had so many great. I can't just the roles with you that I've worked with you on. There's so many I couldn't pick a favorite. I loved Frozen. I love Frozen. That was beautiful work.
Not to be confused with the Disney movie.
Yeah, that was
not the Disney movie.
Yeah.
My God.
Yeah, and we're not doing Frozen Junior of that.
No, we're not doing Frozen Junior. Yeah. Frozen was a dynamite play. Pillow Man, you know, Hamlet, and I loved Hand to God. I interviewed Christy the other day, and one of her favorites was Hand to God.
Yeah.
It just turned out to be so much fun. So much fun.
Yeah. Well, and one that I still think about that kind of probably gets lost in the shuffle was Night of the Iguana.
I love Yeah.
Yeah, that felt like, for me in my relationship with you, that felt like a certain culmination of like a lot of things, our relationship that we had been working on for all those years. And like you had this vision for Shannon, and I remember you just talking to me about that play for months before it was even like audition.
It's always been a very personal play for me.
Yeah, and it just became that for me too. And then of course Christy was brilliant in that as well. But that was one that, I don't know, there was something about this that I felt like your muse, like you're like, I need to move this guy around and get this story out.
Right.
And I'm going to use him to help tell this story. And it really was a beautiful experience.
One of my, and it's not, I didn't take the role, but one of the most pleasant, weird experiences for me was with you, was A Man of No Importance. And that show,
I stage managed that show.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah, we were all there. And Nick Smith was there, and Gene Ellis, Barb.
Yeah.
And it was such a beautiful show, and people did not like it. And honey, those reviews I got were not reviews. There was an assassination. And it was like, is it that bad?
Yeah.
And,
I love that. The music
and a lot of people who saw it were like, you know what was, they loved it though. You know, you could hear them crying at the end. And it's funny that the audience is such an active part. And I think it was opening night when the critics were there of that show, the audience just wasn't having it. And that kind of led into everything.
Yeah.
And, you know, but I have painful memories of that show.
That's sad.
What?
That's sad.
I have painful memories of that show. It was not a pleasant experience for me. But hey, live and learn, right?
you gave
Also,
me.
My Fair Lady I just did. Oh, Pickering. Oh my God, I almost fell asleep on stage. Oh, that was. Hi, Pickering.
Hey,
Nice
dude.
old man. I'm gonna sit in a chair for 3.5 hours.
Yeah. What could possibly go wrong?
Oh, geez. Okay, now Megan, your turn. Best
Oh,
roles and worst roles.
my favorite would have to be the Heiress, Catherine in the Heiress, and Maggie the cat. Hands down, my two favorite. One I don't know that I would ever want to revisit again would probably be, and I mean I'm too old at this point. Laura in Glass Menagerie. I think that's a combination of the experience with the show. Like you said, there are certain shows that the atmosphere can color the show a little bit.
Yeah.
And by the end, I loved doing the show.
You were so good.
I loved it.
I remember coming into that show and nobody thought it was good. And everybody was nervous and worried. And it was like, oh my, what am I going to see?
Yeah.
And when I finally came in like a couple of weeks before and started to watch it, I'm like, what are you guys talking about? This is gorgeous.
Well, and I think
everything worked beautifully. Performance.
It did.
Yeah.
It turned.
And it was like, you guys looked at me like, everybody looked at me like, what? I said, no,
You
dude,
saved us.
It's gorgeous.
Just by saying that. Yeah.
Yeah, because like there was a point where I was like ready to walk off the stage and just like not come back, and he had to chase me down and like he's like, get back into the theater, you got to go back. And I was like, I can't. I'm like, ugly crying, and then when it ended, the show ended. It's a small cast. It's 4 people. Tim, Karen, and I went to the Hill, like you do after every show. And we just like all sat there and stared at each other. And like, we're just like, well, guess it's over.
Yeah.
And it was emotional to leave, but it was also emotional to get through. Yeah. And so I think that's one that I think when I'm older, that would be, I'd love to go back and have the opportunity to do Mama, but like, not, I need some distance between that, so, yeah.
Roles I'd want to do again are Lear. I love doing Lear. I cannot tell you were with me in Lear.
Yeah.
You and Christy, I hated during that show. Me and Christy were just talking about how much I despised her during that character. And she was like, she was on the surface bitch. Like, you were undercover bitch. You're like, oh, I care about you, Dad, but I really don't. But I could do Lear again till the day I die if I could remember the lines again. And then I just loved him. I loved him. Tevye, I loved, but one role I cannot do anymore is George in Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. I love that role.
Yeah.
Love that role. And I'm aged out. And that's sad when you like aged out of something.
Yeah.
It's happening to me too.
Yeah. Yeah.